Why your MC4 connector can burn. Have you ever seen an MC4 connector that looks brown, melted, blackened, or completely burnt? The first question is usually, what caused this connector to burn? In simple terms, too much heat developed at that connection point. And in many cases, that heat starts because of something called electrical resistance. Resistance simply means electricity is finding it difficult to flow freely through a connection. Think of water flowing through a pipe. If the pipe is clear, water moves easily. But if the pipe becomes narrow or partly blocked, the water struggles to pass. Electricity behaves in a similar way. When the electrical connection inside an MC4 connector becomes poor, resistance increases. And when current continues flowing through that resistance, heat is produced. According to a 2024 study published in the IEEE Journal of Photovoltaics, poor PV connector performance can lead to overheating, electrical hasten, and in serious situations, fire. So, what actually causes this poor connection? First, poor crimping. Inside the MC4 connector, the solar cable is pressing tightly into a metal contact. That process is called crimping. A good crimp gives electricity a strong and easy path to flow. A bad crimp does the opposite. If the wire is not pressed firmly enough or the wrong crimping tool is used, the electrical contact becomes weaker. That weak point creates more resistance. More resistance creates more heat. The system may still work normally at first, but the connector can slowly become hotter over time. Second, the connector is not fully connected. An MC4 connector may look connected outside, while the metal contacts inside are not fully engaged. Think of a plug sitting halfway inside the socket. It may still work, but the connection is not secure. If only a small part of the metal contact is touching, electricity has less space to flow through. That increases resistance and can cause overheating. A 2025 solar energy study by DeGrego, Bonham, and King examined more than 6,000 rooftop PV connectors and found installation problems, including connectors that were not properly seated and loose components. So, proper installation really matters a lot. Third, loose connections and cable stress. If the cable keeps pulling on the connector, the internal contact can gradually weaken. Wind, heat, cold, and years of movement can make this worse. This is why solar cables should be properly supported. The connector should not be carrying the weight of the cable. A loose connection means electricity is trying to pass through a smaller or unstable contact point. And again, that means more resistance and more heat. Fourth, mixing different connector brands. This is something installers should take seriously. Two connectors may look the same, they may even click together, but that does not always mean the metal contacts inside are a perfect match. One connector may be slightly different in shape, size, or contact pressure, so even though they fit physically, the electrical connection may not be ideal. Research from Sandia National Laboratories and NREL has highlighted the problem that can occur with PV connector compatibility and field installation. The safer approach is to use connector pairs that manufacturer approves for use together. Fifth, dirt, water and corrosion. Dust, sand, moisture or other contamination can also affect the metal to metal contact inside the connector. If water enters over time, it can lead to corrosion. Corrosion simply means the metal surface begins to deteriorate, and once the metal contact is damaged, electricity may not flow through it as easily. A 2025 study on field age photovoltaic connections found that some older connectors exposed to harsh environmental conditions develop significantly higher contact resistance. In summary, as the connector aged and deteriorated, electricity had a hard time passing through it, and that can mean more heat. What about high current? Current simply means the amount of electricity flowing through the cable. A properly selected MC4 connector should safely carry the current it was designed for. But if the connection is already bad, Higher current makes the heating much worse. Engineers describe this using the formula P equals to I square R. You don't need to remember the formula. Just remember this. The more current you push through a bad connection, the hotter that bad connection can become. And then there is arcing. If the connection becomes loose enough, electricity may start jumping across a tiny gap. That is called an electrical arc. An arc is basically electricity jumping through the air instead of flowing through solid metal, and it can become extremely hot. That heat can melt the connector and create a serious fire risk. This is also why PV connectors should never be disconnected while they are carrying current. So what should you remember? A burnt MC4 connector is usually the final result of a problem that started much earlier. Maybe it was a bad crimp, maybe the connector was not fully inserted, maybe the connection became loose, maybe dirt or moisture entered, maybe incompatible connectors were joined. Whatever the cause, the pattern is usually the same. Poor connection increases resistance. Higher resistance produces heat. Too much heat damages the connector, and if the connection becomes unstable enough, electrical arcing can make things much worse. So if you find a burnt MC4 connector, don't simply replace it. Find out why it's burnt, because if you replace the connector without fixing the real cause, the new connector may eventually burn again. And if there is burnt connector, you might be looking at a serious fire here. Thanks for watching. Do like, share, and subscribe.